Today we'll draw this eye with graphite pencils. Let's see, I'm going to start building up the layers. I always start with the midtones and then I gradually go darker, and I try to go around the highlights. So starting with the 4B graphite pencil, I'm going to go over my sketch lines, and then around or on top I'm going to go over everything that's going to be a bit darker. So if you look at the reference photo, the crease line can be darker. And why I start doing this is because once I start the shading of the skin here, I don't want to lose all of the sketch lines. So that's why I darken everything that I need to keep of the sketch lines. The top line, so the top eyelashes here, they're pretty dark. So the iris, we can also go over the iris, and the pupil is pretty dark. I'm not going to fill it all in now because I would just want to use the darker pencil for that. One thing I want you to do is always use light pressure, because if you start using harder pressure now, it will be difficult to layer over this once we build up the layers. So every layer you put down, you want to use light pressure. So this is the 4B, and if you think this isn't dark enough, you want it darker, don't press harder, but just go, just move on to the next pencil grade. Use the 6B or the 8B or the black for the darkest. So whatever you do with every layer you put down, try to use light pressure, always. So I'm also going to go over the eyebrow hairs, the sketch. So that's one thing you want to remember as a complete beginner. You might not get used to it right away, but the more you draw, the more you will train your hand to use light pressure, and also to be able to control your hand to draw, to draw what you want. It's all about practice. And I'm also going to start shading the darker parts. So if you see here above the upper, or if you look through the lashes, so the lashes are kind of like the final step. So we're going to look through the lashes. Then you see this darker value, kind of like eyeshadow or shadow here on the upper eyelid. I'm also going to start shading this, the darker values. So like I said, I start with the midtones, I go around the highlights, and then build up slowly towards the shadows. Here I want to darken this. So I'm going to go over a few of the lashes. Everything you want to keep in your sketch, and that's going to be darker, you can go a bit over it. And I'll show you in the next step why. So here, and again I'm using light pressure every time. Okay, so here we have this, the lash line. It's a bit darker, so I'm using light pressure. And you can see that when I start to shade, I hold the pencil a bit more to the back, trying to use light pressure. But let's start the shading of the skin around it. For that, I'm going to use the 2B. So I'm going to switch to a bit lighter one, and then we're going to start shading the skin, shading this all around. And you see that when I draw, I hold the pencil like this, but when I shade, I hold the pencil more to the back so that I can shade with the side of the pencil lead. Like that. Look at the reference photo and check the values. So here you see that it's a bit darker. Here you see kind of like a highlight just under the eyebrow. Here you see that it's darker. So when I start this layer, I also go in a bit circular motion. Like if I go slow, you can see that I shade like this. And then if I go faster, you can see that a bit of circular motion, but also back and forth really quick. And why you want to shade like this is to create a smooth layer, which will be easy to blend later. So also try to use consistent pressure. If you press a bit hard or a bit lighter in some areas, you will see these strokes, pencil strokes. So practice this by holding your pencil a bit more to the back, and you can also practice this on another piece of paper. So if you're a complete beginner and you think, oh, I need some more practice after this drawing, you can also practice your shading techniques and practice using consistent pressure. That's really important because you want to use soft pressure and consistent pressure on each layer. So I'm looking at the reference photo and I'm checking where the highlight is. So I'm going to shade around this area. I'm just going to leave that part. So I'm adding a light layer. And you want a smooth transition here. You don't want any outlines, you don't want any edges. So what I do when I know there's going to be a value transition here, I go lighter and lighter with my pressure so that I get like a smooth transition. And we're going to blend that with the soft tissue, but you want to try to get that without a line right away, so that you will get a nice smooth transition over there. See that? And here you still see pencil strokes, but we're going to smoothen that with the soft tissue later. Okay, so I'm adding, let's see, here's where the picture stops. So like around here is that shadow I see. Shadow of the nose next to it, like here, and then here you see this highlight. You can either shade around it, or you can create it later if you just fill it all in. Both is fine, because if you're using light pressure, you should be able to use the eraser for any highlights. But I like to go a bit around it, just keeping that area lighter. I'm shading this area under the lashes. So when you look at the reference photo, a great tip is also to squint your eyes when you're looking at the reference photo. That way you can see the midtones and also remove all detail, because we're not going to focus on the details, not on the eyelashes now. So I'm going to draw this waterline. And then also going to add shading here. Okay, so continue with the shading. Like this. Add a light layer here. And let's see. I'm also going to start filling in the iris. Actually with the 4B, I think that's better because it's a bit darker. So moving on to the 4B, we're going to smoothen this later. Focusing on those lines that you see in the iris, you see that they're going towards the pupil, like this. So create all of those lines, shading around. I'm also keeping that area lighter where you see highlight in the iris. So you see the top part is a bit darker, and the top part of the iris is usually darker, including the eyeball white, because it's all in shadow. So the upper eyelid is casting a shadow, and this is like inside the eye. So if you want to create that same depth, then you will need to also shade the eyeball white. But we're going to do that when we're going to shade with the soft tissue. Okay, going over the sides because it's a bit darker. And the pupil. Remember light pressure because you want to be able to layer over this. Okay, now let's take the soft tissue. And what I do is I wrap it around my finger and shade everything or blend everything. You don't have to use really hard pressure. You can just notice when it starts to blend. You can use a bit more pressure, but this soft tissue really just does the work. I think I'm just using like medium pressure. And then here, this highlight, I do want to blend, but because I have graphite on the tissue now, I take a clean part whenever I blend over the highlight. So blend over the highlight, create a nice smooth transition from the highlight to the mid-tone here. See that? And I'm also going to go over the inside of the eye. So I'm shading everything, the iris as well, can all get smoother. So you see how everything starts to look, I'm also going to go over the eyebrow. So that's why I drew over my sketch, because when you start to do this and you have really light sketch lines, then you lose the sketch lines. So through, if you look through the eyelashes, no, the eyebrow hairs, well, the eyebrow hairs are kind of thick, but if you look here at the beginning, then you can see the skin tone showing through. So that's what we're going to, that's why we're also going to blend all of this. So this is the skin, and then on top or above the eyebrow it's a bit lighter. So I'm going to take a clean part again and shade above it. Now you see how you really easily went from a not so smooth layer with pencil strokes to smooth right away. Just by using the soft tissue. But you can see that it's looking, it's still looking really flat now. So we need to add layers. Don't worry if you went over the highlight here, because you can really easily, this is the stick eraser, look how easily you can just erase back those highlights. You see that? And then you can use the soft tissue again and blend the edges so that you don't see any harsh eraser lines. Okay, I want to darken some more. I'm going to use the black pencil, and why is that? Because I want to create that dark part in the pupil and also some dark parts here, and then I can compare that dark value to the rest, and then I know how dark I can get. Because if now we're just comparing it to the white of the paper, and in the reference photo you can see all of the values. So with the black I don't yet use harder pressure. I do that on the last steps. So light pressure, I'm going to go over everything that's going to be darker. Here the iris isn't that dark, so I think I'm just going to start with the pupil for now. And you can see that the light is shining on her eye, which is making the pupil look really small. Just to make it look more natural, I'm going to draw her pupil just a bit darker, just a bit bigger, and with some shading around it, just because I think it looks more natural than what I see in the reference photo. That's just because I have experience with drawing a lot of eyes. That's actually the first thing I started with. Okay, I'm going to switch to the 6B because we just used the 4B. This is the 6B graphite pencil, and I'm going to darken the iris. So when I was a beginner, the first thing, and it was also my favorite thing to draw, eyes. Just a single eye from all different types of eyes, different angles. So I'm going to darken the iris. and then also create those details I see inside of the iris. You don't have to be that precise. You can also see some eyelash reflection here at the top, in the top highlight. Part is lighter. So here just some details. And again, you can use the eraser if you went too dark. And I'm going to use, so for these smaller areas, I'm going to add some shading around the pupil here. For these smaller areas, I use the blending stump, and that's why I have two sizes. So I'm going to use the smaller one. I also have a bigger one if I blend larger areas. But if it's really small, then I use a blending stump. And the soft tissue is for the largest areas. So you see how you can beautifully blend everything with the blending stump. I think I'm going to use the white acrylic marker for that brightest part here in the eye. So I'm going to shade a bit, yeah, or you can use the stick eraser. So I already blended over the highlight here over it. So then I can blend over. I can blend again. So I have the midtones now, and if it gets too, if you lose the highlights in the iris, just use the eraser and bring those lighter parts back. You see that? You can draw with the eraser. You can just use this for the highlights. That's a great thing. And as long as you use light pressure with every layer, you see that you will be able to erase or lighten an area. So I also use the erasers quite often. Eraser is not only there for any mistakes you make, but also to create highlights. Okay, so the next step with the 6B again, going to darken crease line. And I'm using light pressure, like I keep, really want you to keep in mind. That's really important, because if you want to darken this, like let's say with the black pencil, you want to darken some more, then you want to be able to. If I use really hard pressure now with the graphite, then you kind of like burnish the paper. I'm not sure if you have done that before, but you use really hard pressure, then you get like this shiny layer. And try layering over that with one of the darker pencils or with the black pencil. Maybe you can try doing that, so then you know what I mean. Because I did that in the beginning. I wanted to get darker values, so then I started pressing really hard, but then I wanted to go darker, or I wanted to blend, and I wasn't able to. So with every layer, light pressure. Okay, I'm going to darken here. And you see how that you will also need to be patient. I'm going to slowly darken everywhere where it's going to be a bit darker. So you see how I'm taking my time and how I'm slowly, gradually layering. And with each drawing, you kind of need to go over through kind of like an ugly stage. So maybe you look at your drawing now and you're thinking, I'm not happy with how it's going. I'm not happy with how it looks. But that's a stage you need to go through to get to the end result. You just need to keep on going, and you need to keep on layering. So don't judge your drawing in the first few layers. Let's see, I'm going to darken the eyebrow. So it's all about gradually building up the layers, taking your time, and knowing which techniques to use. And also which materials are also important. Like before, when I was a beginner, I only used the graphite pencils, and my drawings didn't really have that, you know, my drawings didn't really like pop off the paper. They still looked kind of flat to me, and I didn't really know why or how, and I thought, how do other artists do that? So that's when I discovered I need to go darker. And I tried using different materials, including charcoal, because charcoal can get really dark, but I didn't really like how messy charcoal can get. So that's when I tried the black colored pencil, and that was really surprising to me, because it combines, you can combine it with graphite, it works really well, and you can get a beautiful, nice dark value. Okay, so you see that we're starting to get somewhere, but we're not there yet. Slowly going over the crease line here. And also darken a bit here. I'm going to use the blending stump, the bigger one, just because it's a larger area. So I'm going to blend this because it's all darker. And you can also see kind of like a shadow here shining onto the skin. You see that? I think I'm not going to draw those shadows because the light is shining really bright on her eye, creating those cast shadows. I'm not going to add that. You can if you like, if you want to follow the reference photo exactly. I usually use the reference photo as a guide just to help me create something that looks realistic, but you can change things if you want, if you like. You're an artist. You're the artist. You can choose what to draw and what not to draw. If you think something looks funny or different or you want to change it, then you can just do that. I'm going to, so you see, no, I'm going to blend the crease line as well. And you can see now that we have kind of like a harsh line for the crease. If you look at the crease line, you also see shadow above it and below it. So you want this to be a blended line because it's not a line, it's like an edge, it's a crease. So also blending this. But now I'm going to slowly start to darken some more. So I can use the 8B, but if you look at the value scale here, the 8B and then the 6B are kind of close together. You can, this 8B has a few more layers, but I really want to darken now some more. So this is the black with 1 layer, 2 layers, and then multiple layers to get it really black. So with the black pencil, I just use light pressure where it's not really that black, but it is darker. So for example, the iris, the edges of the iris are a bit darker, and the 8B won't be dark enough. See that? It's just like a really dark gray, and I want to go darker. So I'm going to start to use the black pencil, the black colored pencil. And you can use any black colored pencil actually. The Polychromos is just my favorite. This is oil based. If you also have different colored pencils like the Caran d'Ache Luminance, that's wax based, that's a bit softer. So the wax based pencils are a bit softer than the oil based, and I've noticed that these, the Polychromos is really great for smaller details. You can sharpen it to a nice fine point. So great for any darker details. Okay, so the pupil, I'm going to go over it again. You see how I can get it even darker now? Starting to use more medium pressure. Here, this part just below the upper eyelid. It's also really dark, and then the edges around the iris isn't that dark. So I'm just going to use light pressure and carefully darken with light pressure. Add a layer and then darken here the top part of the iris, and slowly darken a few parts in the iris. The rest is a bit lighter, so I'm going to leave that lighter. Let's see the corner here. I can also add shading here. So what I'm going to do, let me darken this first while I'm using the black. Darken this, the corner. You see how in shadow this part is? Looking at the eyeball white, so you really need to add that to create that depth. On this side it's a bit lighter because the light is, I think the light is coming from this side. So let's darken here, this corner a bit. Now I'm going to use the 4B, graphite pencil. Add a bit of the graphite here at the top. You see that the upper eyelid is casting a shadow. Look at what a difference it makes once you start to add more shadow to the inside of the eye. And then here you see how flat it looks. Add shadow, and then you can see how instantly it already moves to the back. So you know, when you darken something, try to keep this in mind. When you darken something, it moves to the back. When you lighten something, you bring it to the front. So highlights need to be lighter. You bring those areas to the front, and then everything that you darken, you bring that to the back. And that's how you're going to start to get a 3D effect, more depth in your drawing. Because you have a flat paper, so you're going to create a 3D look with values. Okay, now I have this. I'm going to use the smaller blending stump and blend this all. I start where it's a bit lighter. If your blending stump gets a bit dirty, you can use an extra piece of paper or maybe the soft tissue. You can just wipe it off. But what I also like to do is use the kneaded eraser. And I just, you see that? I just wipe it off, clean it off. Because the kneaded eraser, you can just mold it again, clean it off. So that's how I like to quickly clean off the blending stump if it gets too dirty. So here you see a lighter area. Just going to blend this. And also use the graphite that's on the stump a bit to blend here. It's not, yeah, there is kind of like a highlight here. So if I blend it all too far, what I then do is use the kneaded eraser. I mold it into a point or like a smaller shape like this. And then you can see that you can just gently pick up any extra graphite that where it got too dark. And then you can see if it's too light or if you have any eraser strokes, then you can just use the blending stump and blend that. But I think I'm going to use the soft tissue because the blending stump is always has some kind of graphite on it. So I'm just going to blend it like this. Okay, so those are the steps. Blending stump, if you shade too much, then you can use the kneaded eraser to lighten. Blend this area here. Here, the inside the corner, blend it all. Here, the waterline, it's also in shadow here. And then here you have those dark lashes. So look through the lashes. We're going to create that later. If I look through the lashes, I see some darker shading here. First I'm going to blend the iris. I'm checking the highlights to see if I need to lighten. So you can use the kneaded eraser to lighten, or you can use the stick eraser. The stick eraser does erase more than the kneaded eraser, but For these kind of smaller areas, I just like to use the stick eraser, and then I just like use really light pressure because it will be more difficult. Yeah, you can mold this into like a really thin line, and then you can use it to erase some areas. But if it's really small, then I just use the kneaded eraser. So you see how I keep these areas lighter, and I just use the kneaded eraser for that. You see this edge here? It's a bit thicker in the reference photo. It's really thin, you see? So I'm going to add some more shading like this. And on this side, really light pressure because I'm using the black. You can also use the 8B, or maybe you have a 10B or a 12B, just to make sure that it doesn't get too dark right away. Or just use really light pressure like I'm doing. Go over the pupil again if you need to darken. Okay, let's blend this. Okay, let's leave the iris now. I also like to come back to an area. So when I'm focusing on the iris the whole time, and then I'm not sure what to do or what to change, then it helps to move on to another area. It also helps to step away just for a while, but if you don't want to step away, or if you just don't want to take a break or whatever, it helps to move your focus to another area. Once you come back to the iris, and then you can maybe look at it with fresh eyes to see, yeah, anything you need to change or see something that you missed. That helps for me, just moving on to another area. This is the 6B pencil. You see how the skin is looking quite flat still. So we used the 4B for this. Now I'm going to use the 6B, and you see how I already hold it more to the back because I'm going to shade with this side of the pencil lead. And I'm going to add a layer where it's darker. So you see that it's darker here in this area. And again, back and forth, but if I go slow, this is how I shade. But then really fast, like this. And consistent pressure. So this is, again, when you can practice with this. Okay, here. And then when you start to go toward an area where it's lighter, I start to use really light pressure to create like a transition. Here it's darker, just above the crease line here. See this shadow, this fold? The crease goes all the way here up to the eyebrow. And then up here is the highlight. So that's where I'm going to stop, or that's where I'm going to use really light pressure. Like that. And then here you see like a spot now, or an edge. And that's where we're going to blend using the soft tissue. Here it's also look between or look through the eyelashes. See that here? Here it's all light, all highlights. Just here above the crease line. So you see how with every layer that you get it a bit darker, how you start to make it look more and more realistic. Let's see, here under the lashes can also be darker. I'm looking at the waterline. I have it too thick over there, so I'm just adding a bit. And even though you lose a bit of the sketch lines of the eyelashes, don't worry, we can create them later. And the eyelashes don't have to be exactly the same. We're just going to follow the same direction, so don't worry if you lose them while you're adding the shading. Let's see, here a bit, and then here around this highlight. Here it's also a bit lighter. going from the corner, so compare areas. Even though you have your sketch, you still need to compare and see. So here, going a bit lower, like that. Here it's all a bit darker. And you, when you start to shade or blend with the soft tissue, it gets a bit lighter. So don't worry if it looks darker now. It can get a bit lighter. Yeah, adding it just a bit here, and then we can start to blend. Maybe add it a bit higher. But I usually, so you see that the highlight under the eyebrow isn't as big as I have now, but because I'm going to push the graphite, it will, I will get, the highlight will be smaller than you have now. So I always like to leave a bigger area or a bigger space around the highlight to give room for the blending. I start with the highlight because I have a clean part of the tissue now. That's where I usually start. And then I gently go over the line, like the edge of where I stopped, and then I gently pull it towards the highlight. Like I blend here over this line, and then so you see that you get a bit of the graphite, move it towards that highlight. And then check to see that you don't lose it. If you lose it and you smudge too much or you added too much graphite in that area, again, just use the kneaded eraser, pull up some of the graphite, and then if you have any eraser strokes, smoothen that all out with the soft tissue. Okay, we can blend all of this now. I'm checking, can I get this a bit darker? Yes, I can also add some more graphite here on the eyebrow. Smoothen this all out, and then here. So whenever it's a bit lighter, you can see how much of the graphite it picks up. You can see that it's already a bit lighter than we had. I take a clean part wherever it's a bit lighter, like that. See how beautifully smooth you get it with the soft tissue, and also because we're adding that darker value, how you start to get that 3D look. Remember to keep going. So if you were critiquing your drawing at the first stages, then yeah, you just need to keep in mind, keep on going, never stop. Because with every drawing you create, you learn something new. So even if you like make a mistake here in this drawing, try to continue, because even from mistakes you can learn, and you can also fix mistakes and just keep on going anyway. So try to keep going. Every challenge, every mistake, that's what helps us learn. Okay, looking at the drawing. So now you see that I'm getting a bit more depth in the drawing now, but I need to go over the crease line to darken, so I'm going to use the black pencil and now darken everything again. And then I can compare, and because I think we're getting there with the skin. The value of the skin is looking good now. So let's darken. And then I can also darken the eyebrow. Okay. And what I also do, so I'm carefully going over, and I'm using light to medium pressure. But what I do, I have this line now, and it looks like a harsh line. So what I do is also gently, with light pressure, I blend above the crease line. So you see, that's where you see kind of like a shadow, like an edge. So here, I add light shading just above the crease line to make the line look less harsh and to create that edge. You need that edge. So you see how I add some value above it. Here, this line. Below it, it's quite, I do see some value, so I'm adding a bit below it as well. So you see how you can really make it look less harsh, that line, and make it look more natural and realistic. Okay, so the same for here. So here in the middle it's thinner. So just a line here. And then here I'm also going to blend a bit above it. Carefully with light pressure. Again, if your black is getting too dark, you can just switch to one of the graphite pencils, maybe the 8B or... Okay. And let's blend using the blending stump. I'm going to use the bigger blending stump. And there is some graphite on the blending stump because I don't clean it because it's darker here. So I only clean it if I need to go over some really lighter areas. Okay, so you see that the blending stump really does its job by making it all, by blending it all a bit more. Also blending below it, and then I can create those bright highlights with the eraser. So I can blend this. See how I also go a bit in a circular motion while I blend. You can use medium pressure, maybe a bit more pressure in some areas. And then here I see that I want it a bit darker. 6B graphite pencil. I'm going to darken. Because I darkened the crease line, and then you can compare values. You can see that the shadow around it also needs to be a bit darker. And then here, just below the eyebrow, also just a bit. But I think the rest is fine. So I'm curious to know, for you who are beginners, is this kind of like... I don't want to make it look too easy, but is this doable? Because you're a beginner, I think I'm explaining the steps really easily from the beginning. We went step by step, but is this something that's okay for you to do, or is this already too difficult? If you're a complete beginner, just let me know. I would love to hear if this is too difficult or if this is okay because we're going step by step. Something that is going okay for you. So we see I added a bit here, and now let's blend this. If I use the soft tissue, it gets a bit lighter, but I want to keep this dark value, so I'm going to use the blending stump. And I start here, careful. You don't want to go too far, because that's where the highlight is. So just gently blend the edge, because I want to keep this dark. So even though you have the steps, you can go step by step, but if you think that somewhere you messed up or something didn't work out, you can always draw it again, and then every challenge that you had with the first time, then you know what to do next time, or you know what to change or what to add. That's what I mean by every mistake or challenge you will learn from it. And then you can take that with you for the next drawings, or you can try the same drawing again and then see if it will go better. So you see I'm blending. Make sure you have smooth transitions everywhere. And then after the blending with the blending stump, sometimes you can have like these start and stop areas. So what I like to do is blend it further with the soft tissue. Take a clean part, and then here, especially over the highlight, just smoothen it further. And then here you don't want an edge, so I'm going to take the graphite and blend it all here. Also a bit above the eyebrow, like that. You see how that already creates a more smoother. Okay, here as well. Okay, so I think I'm satisfied with the skin now. Let's see, go over this again. A bit smoother. So that's how I like to smoothen further after the blending stump. You can make it a bit smoother with the soft tissue. Okay, let's use the black pencil again. And you can really see that we need the eyelashes. I know that you could be tempted to create the eyelashes now, but I really like to finish most of the drawing. So yeah, with the black I'm going to start creating the eyebrow now, and then we can compare values more. Practice is key. That's why when I started, I just drew eyes, so many eyes. It's and the more you draw it, the easier it will get. You will remember the steps. You will know what you need to do. You will know what works. Even in the beginning, I didn't really know which materials were best. So I tried out different materials, different things. But now I know what works. So I want to help you by showing you what works for me. But you can also try out different materials and see what works for you, because even though if this works for me, every artist has their own preference. So I like to use the black pencil, but I'm also starting to experiment some more with charcoal pencils. So I wouldn't say this is what you should use. I would say experiment. But if you're a beginner, practice first. Don't make it too difficult for yourself. Practice first with the materials you have. Focus on the darker values. It also helps if you have a value scale so that you can compare. If you compare this to the reference photo, you can see in the reference photo the pupil, the eyebrow, and the crease line, and the lashes are dark. So you will need to compare that value to your drawing. And I can already see, if I look at this dark value, if I look at the pupil and compare it to the rest of my drawing, I know that I need to darken the crease line again and darken the eyebrow, which we're doing now. So with the eyebrow, I go like with these back and forth strokes. I focus on the direction that you see in the reference photo. So here they go a bit up, and there are also a few loose hairs over here, but I like to do that in the last step because maybe I'm going to blend. So here it goes up, curves a bit. Let's see, I can go a bit lower, like here. So focus on the direction that you see. Here it goes up, here it starts to curve more to the right. Here you see one is a bit longer. Here it goes to the right more, and I see that I can go a bit, so my eyebrow looks too thin, you see that? So even though you drew the sketch, you could lose some sketch lines along the way, so try to keep on comparing. So if I compare it from here, it's getting too thin here, so I need to make it a bit thicker. And you can also check, like from the crease line up, how far do you see. Look at the distance here, look at the distance here, and look at the distance here. So I can already see that I can go a bit lower here, and then you have some loose or individual hair strokes here. But again, I'm going to add that later because I want to finish the skin tone first. And then here it's also thicker. So I can see now that my eyebrow is way too thin. And again, it also helps if you step away for a while. Or you can take a picture of your drawing. That also helps me sometimes when I don't really know what to change or what to add, and I think, something is off, I'm not sure what. That's when I take a picture and look at it on my phone or on the computer and compare it to the reference photo to see if I'm missing anything or why it looks off. Okay, so I have it a bit thicker now, maybe here a bit more. And I'm going to darken the crease line again. So with the black. And sometimes it's a bit back and forth, so you might think I already darkened the crease line, but after the blending you want it to blend all in, and then you might need to darken again. So it's sometimes it's like yeah, a bit back and forth with the layers. Darken again, blend, then needing to darken again, or needing to lighten. But I like to make my layers look natural that way by blending each time. So with the small blending stump, I'm going to blend it a bit. And also because we use the soft tissue here, it could have also gotten a bit lighter that way. Okay, I think it's time for the lashes now, because now we can really start to compare. So you want to be sure that you're satisfied with the skin tone, and before you move on to the lashes. I do blend a bit afterwards, but you do want to make sure that you're mostly finished with the blending. Okay, so I don't use the black. I actually start, you can use the 6B or the 8B. I actually like to use the 6B. Even though the 8B is darker, it's also a bit softer and not really, yeah, I think that's the reason I just prefer the 6B, but you can also use the 8B. I'm going to use the 6B and start the first layer of the lashes. I like to create lashes in layers. So starting with, yeah, I compare. So I start here, like let's say here the corner. And then focus on the direction and how far. Does it go over the crease line or not? And that's how I'm going to go one by one. Doesn't have to be exactly the same. And try to curve the beginning here, but then you want to like create it with a faster stroke. Like you want the tip to be thinner. So kind of like with, yeah, release pressure at the end. Like that. And then the base, at the base it will be thicker, but that's where I'm going to darken with the black pencil. So this is just the first layer. This is where you can just draw them out, because I can't really see my sketch lines that good anymore. So this is where you're just going to draw them again. Focus on the direction. Also try to not draw them all next to each other, but leave some space between them, making it look more natural. Some are also clumped together, and now kind of go like this. Here they're darker, but we can darken them later. Okay, so you see how it's not dark enough yet, and then here I see some more shading. It's all darker here. Okay, so for the lower lashes, here this corner I need to darken. I think I'm going to do that with the black, because this isn't dark enough. The lower lashes also, yeah, again, focus on the direction. They're really long in this reference photo. I'm not going to draw them too long. You can see they're going past the crease line. Yeah, a bit curved. Some more together. Some have more of a space in between. Now you can see that already starts to look a bit better, but we're not there yet. These look like really thin strokes, and that's not what you want. So here they're really light, like that. Okay, so what I like to do is darken them now. First I want to blend a bit here, beginning. This shadow that's in between, and then here as well. Blend a bit darker. I also see that I'm going to use the 6B again to darken this crease line. So you might notice once you start to darken an area, then you know that you need to go back to darken other areas. Okay, so now we have the first layer of the lashes. Use the 6B again to darken here, this shadow. Okay, let's blend, and now I want to darken the lashes with the black. I try not to go over the tips of the lash of each lash, because that's where you're going to make them too thick, and you don't want to make them look like, you know, spider legs. You want them to look natural, and then only darken and thicken here at the base. And if you go over the tip, because it needs to be darker, really light pressure and careful. Just darken here at the base. This can be a bit darker here in the corner. Okay, so this is when you're going to start to darken everything, but really be careful with the tips of the lashes. Keep them natural. Some in between. You can also use lighter pressure, medium pressure, and harder pressure with the black. So I'm going over where I really need it darker and where it can be a bit thicker. I'm using a bit more pressure, but when I go over the tips, really light, really careful. Okay, so that's how you're going to go over each eyelash, and keep on checking the reference photo to compare and check the direction that they're going. Faber-Castell also has the Pitt Graphite matte pencils now. They are also great for the darker areas. I'm also starting to darken here in the corner. So yeah, they are also great for the darker areas. But again, this is just what I'm already used to. So I don't like those darker pencils for the shading. I just really like how these are the 9000 graphite pencils. I really like how these shade and blend, and also maybe because that's what I'm used to. But then those other brands and the darker, I would use that for just for the darker details. But again, the colored pencil works good enough, so I would say try it. If you already have it, use that and see how it works for you, how you like it. Okay, see how slowly adding darker value to the lower part here, that really helps. Here, this corner really needs to be darker. So I'm gently adding a bit shading, really light pressure. See that? Giving that depth here, that shadow in the corner. Really need that. Here the lashes are all together, I think. Darken, and then darken the lower lashes again. Don't go over the tips. Okay. It's a bit lighter. And then we have the highlights. See those bright highlights really shining through? Maybe use the eraser or the white acrylic marker. The last step. So I need some, I'm going to use the 8B for this darker shading here. In between the lashes. Here as well. And then use the blending stump, blend that. Actually use the 8B again to darken the shadow here. Really get that dark. Blend this and blend this. I'm using the blending stump to also blend some other areas here. You see that I just used the graphite that's on the stump and then go over some other areas that I want to add some graphite. Okay, again with the black. So I use the black quite often because the graphite only goes up to a certain value, like I showed you. And then the black I can use light pressure, medium pressure. So I just use it with a bit lighter pressure where it's not that black, but it is darker. Okay, clump some together, make them look more natural. Not all of these loose strokes, pencil strokes for the lashes. Here a bit. Also try to, yeah, some different direction. Okay, let's darken these again. Here I'm starting to use a bit more pressure. See how that really makes a difference, creating that depth. Okay, now I can see that I can also darken the eyebrow again. So I only darken the base now here. Okay, the eyebrow. But you can see that it's a bit darker in shadow here. So with the 8B, I'm going to darken because I need it a bit lower than I have now. See that? If you look at the reference photo, so also check your drawing. See if you need the eyebrow to be a bit lower. So I had my highlight way too high. So this is all a bit thicker. So that's why it's always important to keep on checking. I'm going to blend this with the stump. Keep on checking your reference photo, look back and forth. Even though you have your sketch, you can still go wrong somewhere. Keep on comparing, keep on checking. Okay, I'm going to yeah, use the blending stump here, but also use the soft tissue here for the highlights with a clean part. And if you lose that highlight, just use the kneaded eraser. I think mine is fine now. You don't want it too bright, you want it there. Yeah. I see some highlighted areas in the eyebrow. What you can do is use the stick eraser and just erase some strokes. Okay. If you have any eraser crumbs, it's best to use just like a soft brush. You don't have to, you can also blow it away, but that's what I use. Just a large soft brush. Okay, with the black again, I think we're almost there. These are just the final details. So this is like the step where you can make a picture of your drawing, where you can step away, come back. I can already see, looking at my drawing, that I can darken the top part here in the iris just a bit darker. And also the eye reflection. See that? Just here at the top. What I mean is the eyelash reflection. Just a few of those parts. of those lashes. Okay, going over the edge, try to make it look not too harsh, but blended. Make it look blended. And you can use the blending stump. Maybe just a bit here, the lower, you see where the iris, where the waterline touches the iris? Just a bit like that. Darken here again. Let's blend. I'm going to blend a bit over the highlight because I think that highlighted area in the iris looked too bright in my drawing because I erased that. So I gently go over that highlighted area. Here, just using the eraser if you need to add back any highlights. And then use the black here to create that detail that I see, and then use the blending stump again. Okay, so that's kind of like how I go back and forth if I need to. Maybe your iris is already good. Okay, darken again. So really, that's how you really make it the eye pop, by darkening the top parts. Making sure I have this dark enough. And here again. And continue to darken here. That's what I was doing. Darken the eyebrow just a bit more. And then we're almost there. I'm going to add just a few final details. So you see the eyebrow, you don't want to make it too neat. Just go here, you see some thinner individual hairs. That's where I use really light pressure. You can also use darker graphite pencil, but just create these individual hairs really light here. And what you can also do is blend them, or if they turn out too dark, what I also like to do is lighten them, make them look a bit more natural by using the kneaded eraser and just kind of like blend over them, lighten them a bit. That's how I also create flyaway hairs, but yeah, this is an eyebrow, so just a bit lighter. Maybe with the soft tissue, because I miss a bit of that graphite here. Skin. I didn't really blend above the eye. So just adding a bit, blending a bit above the eye. Yeah. You can just use the, you see that? Just use the, whoops, soft tissue for that. Okay. Here. So try to draw some individual hairs here, make the eyebrow look more natural. And then here. And then when I'm at the last steps, I always see something that I can add, or but whenever you're almost finished, then you can stop comparing to the reference photo. I see kind of like a line here, so I'm going to use the blending stump, blend here. And then you just focus on your drawing. Do you, are you satisfied with the values? Does it look 3D? Are you satisfied with the details? And then you should, yeah, then it's time, I think it's time to call your drawing finished if you're not really adding or changing anything. Okay, so the highlights, blending this, what you can do for the brightest highlights in the eye, you can use the white Uniposca, and then you can add this brightest highlight, and that will also really make your drawing pop. Adding that brightest highlight, and maybe you need to shake. Don't do that above your drawing. I'm shaking the Uniposca and then press the tip down. And be careful, you don't want to do that above your drawing. So for the brightest highlights here in the corner, actually before I see that, I want to darken this corner just a bit more. Let's see, adding just a bit more shading here. So that's when you start to add a highlight, then maybe you can see that it's not dark enough yet in an area. So that's where I just go back and darken if you need to. Blend this. So you can either use the... Okay, so I went over this area with the white, and then I started to blend, and now I went over that part that was wet. So try not to do the same as me, but what I'm going to do to fix that is go over it again with the Uniposca, but be careful because this is acrylic paint. So you only want to use this in the last steps, and you don't want to really blend over that, only when it's dry. But my mistake, what I just did was that it was wet. But the good thing here is that you will get better with practice. So I'm going to use the eraser for these highlights. What you can do is, what I also did was just on an extra piece of paper, practice drawing eyelashes, like these curved, quick movements for the eyelashes. Your hand will really need to get used to how to draw that, and the same for the eyebrow. So my hand is already practiced, so I just draw it because I have experience, years of experience. But I don't want you to compare your yourself to my drawing, because I have been drawing for years, and if you're a beginner, it's not a good thing to compare yourself to others. So what you can do is use your first drawings and compare yourself to those drawings. So the more you draw, it's also good to write a date on the back of your drawing. So I'm just going to continue to add those highlights, those brightest highlights with the eraser. So if you have a date behind your drawing, and the more you draw and you look back at your first drawings, you will really see a difference, and that's the best thing to compare to. That's your journey, and that's when you're going to start to see progress. The more you continue, the more you practice. So try not to compare your journey to others, because that's not really fair. I have been practiced a lot, and maybe some others as well that you're maybe comparing yourself to. So just try to keep on practicing, try to have your goals, and then keep on going and working towards your goal. If that is trying to get better at drawing, trying to get better at realistic drawing, then try to stick to your goal. Just keep on drawing, one drawing at a time, and improve yourself one drawing at a time. And try to have patience, because it really takes time. So you see that I'm just going over the final details. I think we're almost there. I'm just like, sometimes I'm a perfectionist and I see things that I can change or add. I'm just going to darken a bit here, the eyebrow. And with the eyebrow, actually the same as the lashes, you don't want to darken the tips because they're also darker and thicker at the base and then thinner and lighter at the ends. So here I do the same. I only darken at the base. So some areas here in between, darken a bit, make that look a bit more natural. Okay, so I think that's it. I always see something to add, but and sometimes, yeah, when you look back, you can always come back to your drawing another time. I'm trying to finish this so that you have something that you can create and follow, but I think my drawing is as good as finished now. Just blending here a bit around the highlights. You can, if you have any eraser strokes that you don't like or that look too harsh, just blend it a bit with the blending stump. I enjoy teaching others. Everything I have learned along the way, everything I have learned. I'm focusing on the drawing, so I don't really like here this, but going to use the kneaded eraser. Just like that. So kneaded eraser, stick eraser, those are your drawing tools as well. Okay, I think that's it. If you're interested in learning more from me, you can go to the link in the description under the video. And I have different art courses and also an art membership. But if you have any questions, I'm always happy to help. And that's it for now.